Medicinal cannabis can be a divisive topic, but for Carly Edwards' family, there's no debate. It's changed their lives. Cannabis oil has eased the toddler's violent seizures, but it's not cheap.
Carly is Chad and Tamara's little ray of sunshine.
You ready? Oh, there you go, you're going. Feet up. When she wakes up, she sort of lights up the room and she's just ready to sort of rip into the day.
She's a different kid.
Hi. Hi.
Carly has Dravet syndrome, a rare drug-resistant epilepsy that shows in the first year of life. 6 months ago, Carly was frequently suffering from horrific seizures like this one. It's difficult to watch, but Chad and Tamara want you to see this so you can understand why they've been willing to try anything to help their little girl.
Yeah, it's probably at its worst point right now.
They were trying everything. They drilled into her shin at one stage, like administer the medication into the bone marrow in the middle of her shin bone. Like, they tried everything and nothing they were doing was stopping it.
So this is Carly, or Mark and I call her Cece.
We first met Carly and her family in November last year, including grandparents Mitch and Mark, who you might recognise from the most recent season of The Block.
There's shortened life expectancy.
Every seizure was bringing a risk of serious and irreversible damage. The night that story aired, Carly had her last and worst seizure. She had to be intubated.
We watched in hospital the doctors start to panic. I mean, if you had a scene that the night after the last interview, it... Yep.
She didn't recognise us when she woke up in the ICU after the last one. She was calling for us and I was holding her. She had no idea who I was.
Carly has been taking medicinal cannabis oil daily for 6 months now.
You ready for your medicine? Yeah?
Her parents say the response is nothing short of remarkable.
Since then, we've started with the CBD and she hasn't had any since, so...
Isn't that incredible?
It's amazing.
Yeah, changed our life, changed her life. She, she's like any other normal kid now.
But that change comes at a cost, a big one.
Yeah, at her current weight, it's costing $1,100 for a 4-week supply.
You're a young family, you've got 3 beautiful young girls, you've got a small business. $1,100 is a lot of money.
But as Carly gets older and bigger, she needs more. And it's going to be more expensive.
As a society, we shouldn't be choosing those families that can scrap the money together to keep their child alive. I think it's not a choice. It just has to be.
Grandparents Mitch and Mark are hoping that by speaking up, they'll be able to make a difference.
They're saying it hasn't got the longevity of research, like it hasn't got 40 years of trialling. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to wait for 40 years of trialling.
Not 40 years, that's not a gamble that you want to take.
She would have been lucky to make 10 at the rate she was going.
We noticed that his behaviours were calming, his sleep patterns were better, his seizures were less intense. You're frowny.
Down in Tasmania, Lynn Cleaver says she could see the effects of cannabis oil immediately on her disabled adult son, Jeremy. He lives with severe and painful seizures linked to his epilepsy.
Sometimes the medicines are actually worse than the seizures themselves.
He tried a whole range of prescribed medicines. Some even led him into drug-induced psychosis.
He was jumping out of moving cars, he hospitalised one of his support workers. We couldn't shower him, we couldn't put him into bed, we couldn't touch him, we couldn't give him a hug.
The medical panel in Tasmania told her he wasn't entitled to a medicinal cannabis prescription as there was a couple of medications he hadn't tried, even though his neurologist did not recommend them for his condition. Then their cannabis supplier on the mainland ran out. So, fed up, Lynn began growing her own.
Giving him the cannabis was a better option than having him in a chemical straitjacket. The only time we get really nervous is when the medicine's in the ground. You know, we worry about it being confiscated, and that is nerve-wracking for us as a whole family, but he's worth it.
Because of the cost, every single drop of cannabis oil is precious for these families. But there is some hope on the horizon. While there's little medical evidence of its benefits, there are some promising signs for children with uncontrolled epilepsy.
There is a possibility in a few months' time we could have this medicine both approved and subsidised.
Professor John Skerritt is the Deputy Secretary of the Commonwealth Health Department.
In certain conditions, such as paediatric epilepsies, the evidence is pretty good, but together with other drugs, not by itself, it can actually significantly reduce seizures.
While it has wielded some success in kids like Carly, it doesn't work for every child with epilepsy.
In a lot of the trials, a quarter of a third of the kids have had to discontinue it because of things like vomiting and diarrhoea. But the safety profile for most cannabis products is much better, say, even for opiates.
There are calls for a relaxation of our health authorities' attitudes towards it. By the end of June, 50,000 prescriptions will have been written for medicinal cannabis in Australia. Even Olivia Newton-John has called for a relaxation of our rules, revealing it's helped ease her discomfort in her battle of recurring bouts of breast cancer.
It's an important thing to make easier access for patients, particularly people in pain.
As the interest builds and research continues, Professor Skerritt says the nation's medical watchdog is now considering making low-dose medicinal cannabis available over the counter.
And in other countries it's used for helping with sleep, mild anxiety and other forms of fairly non-serious conditions, and so it would significantly open up access to a low dose of these products.
In the meantime, Chad and Tamara will continue to struggle to pay their medical bills.
Not going anywhere quickly.
Slow.
They're taking it one day at a time.
It's probably been only recently that we've stopped holding our breath as much. Even though it's been 6 months, each week feels like a year. We haven't really had any negative side effects. We've only seen super positive things out of it. You know, we couldn't praise it enough. We really couldn't.
Thank you.
Public consultation on the availability of low-dose cannabis ended last Friday. We should get the results from that in a few months.